All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being with us this morning. I will go ahead and call our September 2022 meeting of WKU Staff Senate to order and begin with the roll call. Senator Basham.
Present.
Regent Brinkley.
Present.
Senator Campbell. Present. Senator Kanzler.
Present.
Senator Cato.
Present.
Senator Crow.
Present.
Senator Foster.
Present.
Senator Gilbert.
Present.
Senator Hopwood. Present. Senator Inglis, I believe, had a coverage issue, so she is working, unfortunately. Senator Johnson.
Present.
Senator Jones.
Present.
Senator Moran.
Present.
Senator Pritchard.
Present.
Senator Purdy.
Present.
Senator Roberson.
Present.
Senator Salmon.
Present.
Senator Chagradsky.
Present.
Senator Thomas.
Present.
Senator Vanderpool.
Present.
Senator Vincent.
Present.
And Senator Waller. So with that, we will go ahead and move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda for this meeting. Seeing no objections, I would like to accept the agenda for today's meeting by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Hearing none, we'll consider that to be accepted. Next, we'll move to the approval of the prior monthly meeting minutes. Much the same, I'd like to go ahead and move to accept those by unanimous consent unless there are any objections. Wonderful. We'll consider those to be approved and accepted. Next, we'll hand it over to Senator Vincent for the Christopher Ware Staff Star Awards.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. The Christopher Ware Staff Star recognition was developed to spotlight WKU staff members who have been recommended by other faculty, staff, or students for their unique commitment to WKU. There are so many great staff members doing amazing things across campus, and we wanted to come up with a way to show a small token of our appreciation. If you know of some staff member who have made an extra special difference for students, faculty, and our staff at WKU, we invite you to make a recommendation to recognize the staff member. The form is located on our website. Our first Christopher Ware Staff Star Award goes to Miss Tony Dye. Tony is the Assistant Director of International Student Office. Speaking on her behalf is Miss Wesley Ann Watkins.
I'll keep this short and sweet just because I know Tony does not like public events. The fact that she's here to say a lot. When I nominated Tony, I gave feedback on creating an inclusive environment in our office. Traditionally, our offices, study abroad and global learning and international student office, have been very separate. So when we came together, Tony made sure that staff got included. We changed policies. She was very positive during that time. And then also we've added new staff, so she's changed our training route, and she's just been an excellent supervisor. So I'll leave it there. So not embarrass you.
You want to stay up here?
I should Brian and Dr. Sunny Gardner also say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry that I'm not able to be there with you, but I'm really delighted and honored as someone who's worked with Tony for the last 4 years to celebrate this great achievement. As Wes pointed out, Tony's commitment to inclusivity, her incredible flexibility, her creativity with bringing people together and working across different units within our office, and her special commitment to diversity, to helping us diversify not only our staff and the structure of our staff, but also to diversify and expand the populations that we serve. So I want to give a special thanks to Tony for her very hard work and her outstanding team that she's led this past 4 years. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Our next Christopher Ware Staff Star Award goes to Ms. Julie Harris. Julie will be joining us virtually along with Dr. Kudali, who will be speaking on her behalf. Julie is currently the graduate admissions specialist in the graduate school. Dr. Kudali?
Good morning, everyone. It's truly an honor for me to speak a few words about Ms. Julie Harris. Ms. Julie Harris serves as a graduate admissions specialist in the graduate school, and in this key position, she leads efforts to ensure that applications to the various graduate programs are processed in a timely manner, while ensuring that all the application documents have been thoroughly verified before sending the files electronically to the graduate program coordinators. As the primary processor of graduate applications, Ms. Harris has deep knowledge and expertise regarding the application requirements of the almost 90 graduate programs. She is the go-to person on campus regarding graduate admissions, and in this capacity works closely with faculty and staff internally and with prospective students to provide her constituents with accurate and timely information that will result in completion of a graduate application. Ms. Harris was instrumental in helping WKU transition from a paper to a paperless graduate application and will be closely involved in improving the experience of graduate application to students with the use of a new modern software called Slate. Ms. Harris has well served the graduate school for over a decade and is always willing to step up and help the admissions operations to the best of her abilities. Thanks to her efforts, the graduate school processes anywhere between 3,000 and 4,000 applications each year. This onerous task is shared with just one admissions associate and a student worker who works part-time. This amount of work, simply put, is incredible. Ms. Harris adapted remarkably well during the pandemic and worked incredibly hard and came up with creative solutions to ensure that the graduate applications were processed in a timely and efficient manner when the WKU campus operations was shut down for a few months. I'm deeply grateful to Ms. Harris for her exceptional service, and she exemplifies the spirit of WKU. In my humble opinion, she's truly deserving of the Christopher Ware Staff Award, and Ms. Harris is the 5th employee in the Office of Research and Creative Activity in the Graduate School to receive this honor in the past 15 months, exemplifying the high quality of service that these two offices provide to WKU. Thank you again for giving me an opportunity to speak a few words about Ms. Harris.
Our final Christopher Ware Staff Star Award goes to Zach Martin. Zach is the Assistant Director for Alumni Engagement and Philanthropy. Speaking on his behalf is Dr. Anthony Bash.
Thank you all. Many of you know Zach from his time on campus. So he's been with the Alumni Engagement and Philanthropy team for just about a year now. And before that, had 6 years at the University of College. And over the past year, he's kind of proven himself to be an indispensable team member in our work in Alumni Engagement and Philanthropy and our work with our students. So he was hired to lead our student engagement and philanthropy team, but on a daily basis, he gets called into action to support whether it be a colleague or an alum who may need help. Most recently, Zach stepped in to help a brand new WKU graduate resolve an issue with housing that's causing her diploma to be withheld. He not only provided exceptional customer service to the new graduate, who was a 3rd-generation hilltopper, but he also made a strong impression of the WKU matriarch of the family, her grandmother. In addition to helping provide exceptional customer service to any visitor or caller, Zach has shown he's always there to help. No matter if it's staffing the University Welcome Center to help greet visitors to campus or helping a new colleague set up their technology, Zach continually goes above and beyond to make a difference in the lives of our university community. Thank you, Zach.
Give one more round of applause for all of our staff. Right. Next on our agenda, we have our guest speaker for today's meeting. So President Caboni, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Brian, for the invitation. Thanks to all of you who are here in person, for those of you joining via the World Wide Web, the interwebs, the YouTube. Thank you for paying attention. This is actually one of my favorite things to get to do, really to kick off each year. Some of you may recall in my inaugural year, this is one of the first things that I did, and folks were like, wait, he's gonna come visit with us? I'm like, well, of course I'm gonna come visit with you all. And so I'm appreciative of the good work that we've been able to do together. Brian, congratulations, good to be back. Jordan, congratulations. I think that when I think about the relationship with shared governance organizations, from my perspective, this is a really important give and take. And I ask our student government association, I ask our staff senate each year, and I ask our faculty senate chair as well. Tell me what you want to accomplish, and let me be helpful in getting us there. And so Brian and I had that conversation just a few weeks ago, and I think there is a great deal of opportunity ahead. I also appreciate the feedback that I and everyone who works with me gets from you. It's important for us as an institution to have an ongoing dialogue about how we do better. And there's always room for improvement. And so for that, I'm also quite thankful. I do think that if you think about what we've all lived through together, what a remarkable set of several years this has been. Having accomplished 5 years of work, that's a pause point for the campus a little bit, and it's uncomfortable for me that the focus is on me and today's student newspaper around what it's been like personally and professionally. So instead of talking about me, I want to thank you. When you think about what we've navigated, right, the broader world of higher education, but also the challenges spring of 2018, budgetary challenges in that first year. If you think about navigating a global pandemic and doing it in such a way that we didn't take any money away from anyone, right? And we wound up on the backside of it at a very stable place as an institution. And then when you think about how we responded to the tornadoes that tore through campus just about 6 months ago, longer than that, 9 months ago, really proud of that work. And most importantly, we did all of that and navigated all of that while increasing our retention rates, while increasing our graduation rates, while increasing our diversity. So are there challenges? Absolutely there are challenges, but there are tremendous accomplishments. When you think about that, in the face of all of that, we created the first year village. We've ramped up retention for those first year students who participate in LLCs. We've opened the commons, even despite the challenges facing global supply chains. Took a little longer, but I think we're all happy that we're there. If you think about some of the other fiscal transformations on campus, create a new scholarship program. We've raised more money in the past 5 years than any other 5-year period in this university's history. And so we've worked really hard to create stability. But it didn't come without difficult choices. And so I know we all have faced that. I know we all have friends who are no longer here. And I know we have a continuing conversation around what we're dealing with in the external environment. So I look at the gas tank or the gas price every time I fill up. I know you all do as well. I know what it costs to get eggs now, and it's 40% more than it was a while ago. And so we have some challenges through which we must navigate, right? We have to work together to get there. And many of the questions that you all have submitted electronically deal with compensation. And so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about kind of my personal philosophy and what we need to do. As much as I wish we could have an 8% raise pool, for those folks who work on the budget executive committee, we know that that's probably not doable, right? Because of, well, math. And the reality is that for us to be able to have that kind of pool would require enrollment and retention, or not just us, no one is going to do that. And so I want to begin with a conversation around we have to do what's possible. And that's where the conversation really has to begin. A reminder, we did have 2% last year, we have a 2% pool this year. There were several questions submitted about how it is that pool is going to be allocated, and I've got some notes here that I will refer to as I talk about these issues. And I think it's important to remember where we began our budget conversation. When I arrived, budget was created by 3 people sitting in a room, apparently. The president, the EVP, and the provost. And it was then gifted to campus, right? That is not the process we use anymore. If you remember, we now have a budget executive committee. You all have a representative, at least one on there, and a staff regent who, even though he's not on there, advocates loudly for your positions, which is a good thing. Because that's actually a great example of how shared governance is supposed to work. And so you know that there's a 2% pool this year. I haven't decided how that's going to be allocated. Brian and I had a conversation around, is 2% the right number? And if it isn't, how do you have that conversation within a group of folks who are all decision makers for our campus? And then, perhaps more importantly, how is that allocated? I know inflation is taking a bite of everyone's paycheck. We have been working hard to provide managers and directors flexibility in their organizations. And so with VSIP, with people leaving, with a contraction of the labor force, with a global pandemic and folks deciding that they want to experiment and do other things, our attrition rate has been about 14%. That attrition rate is equal with other universities across the country. So we're not an outlier there. But are there pockets of the organization where we've had additional turnover? Absolutely. But I want to point out to you, that's an opportunity. David in our public media office, I always use him as an exemplar because he spent and his team spent 6, 8, 9 months thinking through what a new organization could look like. And so when 3 or 4 people left, they recalibrated, they reconceptualized how they work. They created new and different positions in partnership with human resources and general counsel's office to help make sure we were doing everything important and necessary. And so I know there's more work to be done because there are fewer people. And should you be rewarded for that? Yes. I'm going to encourage you because I've encouraged our leadership to work together, to think about how it is you might think differently about how the work is organized. Are there ways to reward folks in that? And then we have to think about our 2% pool. A reminder, COVID paused some of this work, but it was restarted last spring. We got to a place where we could look at the compression issues and market issues related to salary. Was it perfect? Nothing's ever perfect. Was it good? Yeah, it was pretty good. And so last year, you recall, the BDC made a decision to have a 1.5% across the board increase. And then for that other 5% to be used really to adjust folks within that market rate. Did we get there? Not on the staff side. Susan, help me remember, did we get there on the faculty side or closer?
A little closer. I mean, there's just some big outliers, few outliers on both.
So we put a cap on how much, and we're going to do that work, I hope. The BDC, I'm going to encourage them to make an additional leap forward to get folks to that 80% of market, which is what we shot for, right? Once we get there, right, I have a personal perspective on how it is compensation needs to work. First thing we need to do good compensation and awarding of raises is we have to do good evaluations. And we've been working really hard on that. We have technology available to us now. There are forced conversations between managers and teams to talk about what are you working on and how well have you done there? Where have you been great? And where is there room for improvement? And what are your goals for next year? And how did you do at accomplishing your goals from last year? To my mind, if we get to a place where, for example, if we have a 2% raise pool and we've gotten all the compression or much of the compression market taken care of, I don't think everybody gets 2% across the board. I just don't. I think that you might have a range. So is it from 1 to 4%, for example? And if you're a low performer, we're an organization, right? So it's all a bell-shaped curve. There are low performers, there are high performers, there are average performers. If you're a low performer, we don't want to give you a 0% raise. That's probably unkind, unfair. but you also wouldn't get a 4% raise, right? Because what is the message that sends to high performers? So I think where we're headed as an organization, this is what high performing organizations do, is being able to signal the internal market to reward people who are overperforming and say thank you in a way that feels like thank you. And for folks who are underperforming, to have a difficult conversation, right? Do you want to do this work? And if not, how can I help you get to a place where you're going to be successful? That could be doing something else internal to the organization. That could be what's the next step on your career path. But that internal signal is really important in terms of human resources. Now, I know what's going to happen when I say this, because it happens every time I say this, but I'm still going to say it. We made a decision around days off and making sure staff were equitably treated with fall break and spring break. I know that doesn't buy more gas, but it provides you 5 more days of essentially vacation time. I was proud of that decision. We worked hard to get there. It's not free, but it also is not more money. And so I understand that as well. But I thought that moved us toward more equity between our faculty who did get those days off and our students who also disappeared for those days, and everybody else who was working hard and everybody else was gone. And so I do hope that provides a little bit of relief. When you think about money we spend, these are all trade-offs. It's a finite fixed pie. We do a good projection at the beginning of the year for what we think that is, and hopefully we come close to it in terms of the net revenue we produce and everything else that goes into the pot. And then we have to make choices about how that's allocated. And so if you will recall, and I think this is important to remember, in the past 5 years, we've not asked for any individual increases to your contribution to healthcare. Yeah, but that's not additional money. But it's not an additional reduction in money either. The average increase for individuals nationally for healthcare is about 3.9% per year. And so as an institution, we've made decisions to really absorb those increases. We made it again for this year. But, and I will say this, we have to take a good look at the sustainability of that, what that model looks like, and if there's a way to smooth that over time. There was some recommendation that came back around, can we have I don't remember what the recommendation was, but it was some number. I'm like, are you kidding me? In the midst of this, we're going to ask for additional contributions. Let's figure out how we essentially can tighten our belts a little bit more and not put that on individuals and your backs and your family's backs. And so I just wanted to remind you all of that. And then the last thing that I will say is there are other kind of perks and things about working in higher education. I know we've had several folks from IT, for example, see a number that was a lot more than we could pay. And I know it was a lot more than we could pay. Folks who went to the quote unquote real world, they did that for 6 months to a year, and they decided they wanted to come back. Now, they didn't want to come back to the salary, perhaps, but they wanted to come back for other reasons. They wanted to come back because, for me, there's great meaning, I think, in this work. I don't care what you do for a living here. Your job, every one of us, our job is to help more students begin and receive their degrees. And that, for me, is a real motivating factor, right? How are we getting up every day and feeling fulfilled in our lives? Now, if you can't put food on the table, it doesn't matter. But if you can, and you have additional flexibility that you get here that you don't get other places, and winter break and all the other things that I think we do, summer hours. I don't think we can do summer hours all the time. I know that was one of the questions, but we do it during the summer because we can, right? And I'm really proud of that. When you add all of that time up, it actually provides the opportunity for a better work-life balance than you might get some other places with 2 weeks or 3 weeks of vacation. At the same time, I know we have to continue to work on salary, and we'll continue to do that. There were some questions built in around my comments at convocation. And I want to be really clear, if they were unclear then. We have to come back and be physically present. I've heard stories of some individuals who perhaps have not been back on campus since fall of 2020. I'm not spring of 2020, whenever this thing started, right? It's like 2.5 years. If you're watching, you're gonna have to come on back, right? At the same time, we've learned a great deal during the past 2.5 years. One of the things we've learned, and it's one of the reasons we came back in person so quickly, is that our students desperately need to be in person. If you're the first person in your family to go to college, if you're a low-income student, if you're an underrepresented minority student, and remember, about a third of our students are first gen, about a third are low income, and this year we had the highest percentage of underrepresented minorities at 21% on our campus. Those folks need a safety net and supports, and you can't do it via Zoom. You can't do it as a faculty member, and you can't do it as a staff member. But the other thing that we learned during the pandemic is we must be, as an organization, flexible, right? And so for managers who are out there, deans, department heads, you have to be flexible with your folks. That means if you need time off to go do something, you have time off to go do something. We live in a different world than we did 2.5 years ago. And so pretending that everybody's going to clock in at 8 o'clock in the morning and clock out at 4:30 p.m. or 5 or whatever time, that's just not reality. So we have the tools. I am much more interested in us managing to outcomes, figuring out what are our goals and what are we doing, are we hitting them? And then within the parameters that we have within our organizations, have we done what we're supposed to do? Great. I don't need to check your time card. Now that's different from some folks, right? Some jobs require you to come in and do the work and clock out, and you can't do maintenance on facilities from your house. I don't think. Right. Maybe we figured that out too. I know. Look out. He's helping out so many times at the house with stuff that is not working. But at the same, so we have to be present. Our students need us, right? And to be candid, we need one another. The work that we do requires us to be a community. It's not just us sitting via Zoom. And so if you have family responsibilities, absolutely, you need to be able to take care of that. And you shouldn't have to take time off to go have an extended lunch or do this or that, or whatever it is you need to take care of. And at the same time, you can't be going weeks and weeks at a time working completely via Zoom. It's not what universities are built for. It just isn't. And so I know that's painful for some folks, but we need you. If you've been on the computer for 2.5 years, we need you back. And if you feel like you can't do that, nonsense. So for supervisors, you need to be able to create that flexibility for your teams, to let them know and empower them to be self-directed, to take the time that they need to be able to work together to figure out how we meet all the needs, but at the same time be able to take care of ourselves. And I hope that that's one of the other things that comes out of the pandemic. You should not have additional workload in person because somebody's at home not doing their work. That's not what flexibility is, right? So a lot of, and I'm looking around the room, a lot of you were in person for much of this, but many of you were gone, at least in the outset, and I hope you missed it, right? There's something about the culture and the place that's important, and I want to continue for us to press upon that. So I'll talk about stuff. Oh, parking. University presidents always have the parking question, but I appreciate that. It's this is universal across higher education. I think there was an increase to parking this year. Like, is there any increase to parking, or is it just too expensive? It's always too expensive, I know. And why do I have to pay? And we have to repay for lots. And so we work hard to have moderate parking fees. And Susan and the parking folks were gracious enough to provide for me charts that I can't read. But I'll show you. We're in the middle on the premium permits, meaning Northern Illinois is 150, Moorhead is just about 200, Murray State 200, we're a little bit more than that at 225. Ohio University 300, East Carolina 400, Ball State almost 500. Those folks in blue, pricing to park in Lexington, over $700 for premium parking. So I appreciate that it feels expensive. We're doing okay. And then for non-premium permits, and I think it's okay. Look, we have, be careful how I say this. We don't have a parking problem necessarily. We have a walking problem. It's a good line. I know everybody wants to pull up and park in front of their restaurant or park in front of the door where they work. And the reality is for us to have a campus that feels the way our campus feels, that can't be. It just can't. And we've been working hard to move that parking farther to the outskirts of campus. It's $115 for a faculty staff non-premium permit. And so we're not as cheap or as inexpensive as East Tennessee State, which is $80. Moorhead is 100, Ball State is 100, Murray State is 100, so we're 15 more than that. But Illinois State 120, Middle Tennessee 130, and then you get up to Ohio University 150. We find our good folks in blue again. Aha! 480. So we're working hard. I understand it feels expensive. In the grand scheme of things, we're doing okay. And it's good. Look, it's good to walk. I've not been able to take care of myself as much as perhaps I should have. I think I admitted it in the student article. But it's a good thing to get your steps in if you can. I know. So I want to be a better example for everyone. Try to eat better, exercise more, walk more, and do that. So there was a specific question around Aramark employees. And some of our outside vendors do buy permits. Those aren't premium any longer. I think they're not. So I think they think of efficiency of people getting where they need to be. Sodexo does the same for their employees. So I understand that there are some outside vendors that do that. Related to that question, there was someone submitted the ask around, why do we use contract employees? And so that's a pretty, for me at least, a complex answer. I understand the perception, but why are we paying people to do something that we know how to do? There are lots of answers to that. One is that sometimes it is cheaper for us to do it. It's more efficient for us to do it. Or it allows us to focus on a set of core competencies that are ours versus what they know how to do. And so there are some universities that run their own dining plans, for example. And the literature will show that those dining plans are inefficient. They cost more, and they're more of a drag on the institution than outsourcing to someone with expertise. Another example of why we might go out. Either somebody has expertise that we don't have. So I'm thinking about the budget software that we now use on campus. For those of you who interact with Axiom, thank you, Susan. I always say Axios, which is a news thing. Axiom. And I know there are always going to be hiccups. And for those of you who did the work last year to learn how this works, thank you. This is a total mind shift for our organization as we devolve budgetary control down to the units. We could have built that internally, perhaps, but it would have taken the amount of time it would have taken, the lack of expertise and having to staff up to do it. And once the project is over, do you de-staff versus going outside of the expertise, places who've done it, other places that have things that we don't know how to do. And we want to take advantage of that as well. And so I think there is a balance there. We take a hard look at all of those choices, as does the legislature, to be candid with you. When we do contracts, every month, we get called up to explain why it is we made this choice versus doing it ourselves? Is it too much? Is it too little? And it can be a challenging conversation. We work hard to demonstrate the rationale behind it. So I appreciate the question. I certainly appreciate the concern. I hope we all know that no one is being extravagant or trying to waste money. No one at this institution. We're all focused on getting the most, squeezing the most out of every dollar that we have. And so as we make those decisions, I just want everyone to be comfortable that folks are thinking about the best interests of the university and our students and what we're trying to accomplish in our mission as we go through that process. You may have noticed there's some work happening at the top of the hill. You have to walk there. This is important, and the concern is around disability parking at the top of the hill in a very specific way, but I want to address the larger concern that we're continually trying to address. Our university is on a hill. If you're mobility challenged, that's hard, and we know that. There are students who have to get from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill, who have maybe one path if they're in a motorized scooter, they're in a wheelchair, or if they're on crutches for a short period of time. And so what we're working to do is have more access to the top of the hill in a way that doesn't require stairs and smoothing out grades. So one of the things, you know, when you walk it, there are some false flats on the hill, and then there's some places where you just feel like you're climbing a mountain. And what we're trying to do is get those grades down where it's more manageable, particularly for folks who are mobility challenged. And we know we had to separate vehicular traffic from pedestrian traffic. So for those of you who have driven or tried to walk between Cherry Hall and Faculty House, you know what that is. I don't know what engineer thought that was a good idea back when they did it, but they should have been fired or something. So we had cars going where people walk, you have to hug the Faculty House to not get hit. And I don't know if you've noticed, our students pay more attention to their phones than anything else, including while they're walking. So separating pedestrian traffic out, and at the same time trying to create a graded lot behind Potter Hall. And so what you see, there's some more parking spots available there that can get you into the backs of some buildings that was not necessarily accessible before. We're working on another path from College Heights to Van Meter and also to Wilson that does not require stairs. And then we're going to put some more parking near Cherry Hall, which, by the way, will also be graded to the back. If you think about the rear entrance to Cherry Hall, you used to have to walk upstairs to get there, so you couldn't get in that door. That's either fixed or on the way to being fixed. So obviously important for us, and we're going to continue to do that work. Access means access in lots of different ways for us as an institution, and we don't want anyone to feel like there's a barrier. So this is a good question around retention, and we got to do better. And this requires all of us to do better at supporting ourselves. I think we need to do a better job of professional development. We've had this conversation over and over again. We need to train our managers better. We also have to do a better job at in the industry, it's called intake or onboarding. How do we orient folks to campus? I mean, I don't know what it was like for you all, and I mean, I probably had a better orientation than anyone, but it kind of like show up and we'll get you your ID card and here's your office and good luck. we got to help you. We got to do better than that. We have to tell ourselves our own story and what we're doing. And by the way, here's a copy of the strategic plan, the thing that's supposed to be moving all of us toward the same outcome goals. And so Andrew and I have, at least through Susan, have had many conversations around how we can improve, and I think we have to do that. I also think we have to create opportunities for leadership and career ladders, so that if you come to WKU, that after a certain period of time, you don't feel stuck. And I think that's one of the things that we've heard, and it was amplified during the pandemic, that there's somebody in line ahead of me. And I can't get into that position until they either leave or move up. So some of the BSEP conversation was around creating those ladder opportunities. And some of our organizations really took good advantage of that and shifted people around, rewarded them with salary, rewarded them with additional job responsibilities or managerial responsibilities. But we're gonna have to go farther. We're gonna have to go farther at helping people see, okay, I worked in housing and residence life. Do I want to do that for the rest of my life? I mean, there's some challenges living in a dorm. I mean, not say dorm, in a residence. And so if I don't want to do that, I want us to be supportive of folks saying, well, I want to change in career, but I don't want to leave WKU, right? And so how do we build that into our HR processes? And I think the other example of it is, how do we intentionally help grow our staff? So I'm really proud. I think we need to do better on professional development, but I'm really proud of the work that we've done around maintaining a discount for graduate school and also for undergraduates and your families. But I think we should encourage folks to grow themselves. And if it means they grow themselves out of a job and into another part of the organization, awesome. If it means we grow them and they decide, I can go and I'm going to do better out here, but we've helped them get a master's degree, that's okay too. But I think we have to, as an educational organization, as a university, growing ourselves, getting more educated, learning more skills, but also creating pathways is really important. See, compensation study, 4-day work week, sorry. Very specific one around licensing and DFM. Okay, so coffee. Oh, somebody was gonna ask. Coffee was not meant to be a replacement for giving bigger raises. Symbols matter. And we have a space on our campus that I want everyone to use, the Commons. If you didn't hear my convocation address, the Commons, even though there was one in Craven's library, really comes from a place in England to which everyone had access. I want the Commons to be a gathering place for our entire community, faculty, staff, and students. So we figured out how much we'd have to discount it, and I'll look at some of my random numbers. And like, it's a gesture. It is a gesture that says, this is important to our community, which is why you got 6 cups of coffee or whatever mochaccino extravaganza you want to drink. Don't drink it, it's not healthy. Casey says. It's ice cream. And then, but bring somebody else with you. Either someone that you've never met before, you ran into, somebody you work with that you don't know very well. If you work with students and they're having a bad day, say, you know what, come get a cup of coffee with me. And the word that I love about the Commons is the space is magical. It truly is. It embodies everything we're about as an institution. Part of it is basketball. Part of it is taking care of things that have been here well before any of us were born, probably. Almost for sure. But part of it is also community and coming together and sharing. And so that was the idea about it. If you thought I was being cheap and saying you got 6 cups of coffee instead of additional dollars, that was never the intent. I apologize for those of you who heard that or thought that in the symbol. It's never perfect. So going forward, what is crucial for us? What are we going to do more of? The world of higher education today is tough. It just is. If you look at the number of students, and it's tough everywhere, it's particularly challenging in our Commonwealth. If you look at the number of students going to higher education from high school, it's continuing to decline. And it should make all of us crazy. Because the future of our state and the future of our economy is dependent upon more people continuing their education after high school. And I don't mean just WKU. I mean community college, I mean trade school, I mean a certificate to do coding, whatever you, but high school is not going to be enough. We know that. And it's certainly not going to be enough for us to grow our regional economy, which is booming. So I know there's some pressure there between going to get a job, or it's the $20 steak and shake example that we use with the faculty region all the time. He started it. Do I want to have $20 an hour versus going to school? And as a 17-year-old who during the pandemic decided I could go to high school and get a job and navigate that, it's hard to give that money up. But for the good of our economy, I think we're going to have to do better. It's one of the reasons we push so hard on scholarships. It's one of the reasons the Opportunity Fund exists, that no matter your family's economic condition, you can come to college for free if you have a 3.0 and $1 in Pell Aid. And tuition free, not free, sorry. There's some other costs in there. But then, but the other part is we have to elevate the aspirations and help have that conversation with our high schools. And so we're working toward that. 40% of the students who apply to WKU don't go anywhere to college. So when we think about with whom we overlap with the University of Kentucky, some. It used to be about 300 students. That's grown over time as their admission criteria, pretty much just like our admission criteria now, which should be a conversation, not for here, but I want you all to think about what that means. We've continued to do better against that other red place, moving from 200 down to about 150 in our overlap group. The place where we failed. We failed, and we failed these families and these young people. 40% of the students who apply to WKU don't go anywhere to college. They don't go anywhere for a 2-year degree. They either go to work or they evaporate. So we have to figure out that conversation. And it's tough in an external environment around student loans, cost of higher education, numbers that are disconnected from reality in terms of student loan debt for undergraduates. Our average student loan debt for undergraduates is about $25,000 to $27,000 past year. So that for our student population is absolutely affordable, but we got to fix the system, right? So if you're not paying on your loan because you're in forbearance, or if you have an income adjusted payment and the interest rate continues to grow the amount you owe, that's broken, right? And so we're still operating in that environment. We have to demonstrate what our value proposition is. We got to support the students who need to be here. We have to retain and graduate more students. I am so proud that our retention rate is at 77%. We are going to hit that 80% number. When we do that, we're going to have the same kind of retention that flagship universities across the country have. That will necessarily mean we're a different kind of institution than we was a few years ago, creating success at a rate that we didn't ever create it before. Now, some of that we didn't admit, folks, that we used to, and it was not fair to bring hundreds of students in when 80% of them were gone within 9 months, and the average debt load was $4,000, and that the end success rate with a degree was about under 5%. So for that 5%, that was a difficult choice. But for all the other ones that we saved from that, I know it was the right decision to do. We're going to continue to grow our LLCs. It's an intervention that works. It helps our students be successful. 95.9%, 6% came back in the spring semester. About 5% difference in retention. If we can get more people engaged with that, both on the faculty side and staff side, but also with our students, we can continue to make progress. I think the same thing is true with our new focus on first-gen programming. So if you think about the interventions, where did we go? We went to places where we were really challenged. Low-income students, we know, had a low retention rate. Underrepresented minority students, Martha Sales, the Intercultural Student Engagement Center, and all of that, really important for us. And now first gen, you think about all the at-risk populations we serve, that's going to also help elevate that retention rate. So we're going to continue working there. And then I think we have to continue to press on DEI, demonstrating to our 21% of our students that we truly believe in everyone finding their place and being part of our community and integrated into it and finding a sense of belonging. I think we're going to continue. I know we're going to continue to do more academic innovation. But there's a tough story about the Arabic program and a decision that was made with the department chair and the dean in Potter College of Arts and Letters. We have to continually reassess what we're doing. That means there will be some things we stop doing academically. But we have to think about the things we're going to begin. And you can't just keep doing new. Some others have to go away when you're as tight as we are, right? Which is as efficient as we are. And so those have to be intentional strategic decisions around students and enrollment. And the last thing is we're going to continue to press upon our facilities. I'm thankful for the state and their investment. New College of Business building has been a priority for the university for over 20 years. We managed to accomplish that in the last session. Very proud of that work. Facility enhancements, about $70 million in renovating and taking care of what we have. So some of that you will never see, except for holes in the ground, like the steam tunnels that you all are seeing. And we sometimes find out they're crumbling, it's gonna be even more. But the facility I'm most proud of will be Cherry Hall. We will take care of that facility in a way that mirrors what we did with the Commons. So important for our students. Almost every student has at least one course in that building. So it has to match what we did with the Commons. That will create some discomfort. I don't know how it happens. We're not at that point in the conversation, right? Is it phased? Do you move out? Do you move in? But we have to continue to take care of the assets we have. Those of you who know me and know I'm from New Orleans know I believe in sustainability and not just tearing down old things because they're old. If they're not salvageable, you have to make the choice. Bemis Lawrence and Barnes Gamble were never built as 100-year buildings, right? They were even built as 50-year buildings. So we had to make that call. Cherry Hall, we're going to retain the marble steps, the other symbols that matter there, but we have a real opportunity to create another showpiece for our campus, and we're going to work on that. And then the last thing that I will say is that as we're seeing all of these things, we're going to continue to be disciplined in our budgeting. I was counseled not to talk about cash on hand. So, but I do want to explain it because I think it's important. That number is a number that means you have physical stability. It does not mean cash reserves sitting in an account. So that's one thing I want to make. But the other is where we got in 2017-18. I understand exactly how that can happen. We tick down a little bit. We're going to turn it next year. Let's take the dollars we have. We're going to take care of it, right? And we're going to be fine because I believe in what we're doing. And then it doesn't happen again and it ticks down. We're going to do one more year and it's going to turn. And then at some point you look down and we've used one-time dollars for recurring expenses and the gap is no longer sustainable. And so I have a fiduciary responsibility to the university to do everything in my power to not ever let that happen again. I think our budget model is part of that. I think having shared governance involved in those conversations is part of it, but part of it is discipline at the top. And so for anyone who's been around me, you've heard me say the cardinal sin of budgeting is using one-time dollars for recurring costs. Can't do it, won't do it. And so we're just not going to get to that place again. We can't. So thank you for all you do. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your collegiality. Thank you for persisting through what was really unimaginable. I think I've left about 10 or so minutes for whatever it is you want to ask. I think I touched on every question, but maybe not. But thank you for having me again. I may have spoken longer than convocation. He just knows. I appreciate you. I appreciate for folks out in internet land, all the work that we all do. And I continue to be energized about what we create for our students, about the community that we have here. It truly is a special place. And the reason it's special is because of you. And so thank you for remaining committed to our mission. And thank you for walking to your office and smiling every day and taking care of our young people, whatever they need. And I'm confident that we will not have 5 more years like the past 5. Prevented from saying that. I'll just say that. Thank you all very much. Have a great day. Go Tops.
So another thank you to President Caboni. So we will move on with that to the next item on our agenda, which is the reports of officers on their work along with their committees and the staff regent. So Regent.
So really, this was a sort of a attendance type of month. We had board retreat on August the 11th. We had our first full meeting of FY23 on the 12th. There were items that were approved that were on the agenda. We did suspend some academic programs, made some emeritus appointments. There was a slate of personnel actions. That is a typical exercise of any quarterly board meeting. We had a few contracts that were amended and corrected. There was a new contract in front of us for the baseball coach, which was just a few $1,000s less than the previous coach. There was a lease approved, and then we just participated and attended, both Shane and I, on the convocation, the soccer and softball groundbreaking, and the dedication of the conference. It's the time of year where we want to be present and active in all of those things. If anybody needs anything, know that we're, I'll say this about the new board members. I've alluded to this before, but I think Melissa Dennison and Gary Roddy and Cole, the SGA president, are outstanding additions to the board. Melissa's been on the board before. She's an outstanding doctor and has been for many, many years here in Warren County. Gary is the former, he was president of Franklin Bank and Trust for years. Alex Downing is now leading that organization. Gary is still the chair of the board there. And he's a really good, careful thinker, has good financial background, and has already had an impact on the board. So I'm pleased with the additions. They're tolerant of my comments as well, which the president has referred to again. But it's important to have a voice. We have advocacy that goes on. The important thing to note is that both the faculty regent and I, and the student regent, are all advocates for the staff as we are for the faculty and for the students. So we're a good working team. I don't know a time in recent history, and by that I mean the last 4 years. I know Tamela had a better relationship when she was the staff regent, but we have a really good relationship. We continue to have meetings with Susan prior to major meetings, which is a very nice gesture for that department. I mean, think about the time and cost of having a 1-hour meeting with the faculty and staff regent. That's a huge asset. So it gets questions answered and gets clarifications we can bring back when there are those. So again, thanks very much for your continued support. You can always email me if you need to confidentially at WKU staffregent@gmail.com, or reach out and come see me anytime over in the academic conference.
Thank you. All right, Senator Vincent.
The communications committee met on Friday, September 2nd. We discussed goals that we would like to accomplish this upcoming year. One thing that was discussed was we would like to come up with a more comprehensive list of businesses around Bowling Green or the county that offer discounts to WKU faculty and staff. So we're going to work on that this year and update our website. I'm also a member of the benefits committee, and we've been meeting over the summer. Like Dr. Caboni stated, there will be no premium increases for the staff members. Open enrollment period for this year will be October 17th through October 28th. So watch your emails for the upcoming news and additional information.
All right, thank you. Treasurer's report, Senator Purdy.
The EMG index, the starting and the ending balance is $1,462.40. The WKU Foundation account, starting and ending balance is $1,480.64. CHF account, book scholarship, starting and ending balance $1,648.97.
Technology, Senator Gilbert. Secretary, Senator Johnson.
The only thing I have is I will not be in attendance at the October meeting, so I will need someone to take minutes.
Vice Chair, Senator Basham.
That's 11 o'clock, longest meeting we've had in a long time. But so for the workforce committee meeting, for the workforce committee report, we're gonna start doing something new and fun. Try to do a top 3, top 5 things. I have a pinch hitter for item number 1. Michaela Daniel from WKU Human Resources is here to make a bit of an announcement. You wouldn't mind coming to the center.
Hi, everyone. I'm super happy to be here. I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention that we do have a pilot supervisor training that we are going to have here. It's going to begin on October 18th and run through September 19th. It'll be 2 separate cohorts, and applications are open now, so I highly encourage everybody to apply. The training is open to anybody that supervises 1 or more full-time staff members, and it's going to cover a lot of super helpful topics that I think everyone will find very interesting, including, policies, emotional intelligence, unconscious bias, how to have conversations around performance, expectation, all sorts of stuff like that will be included in the series. So I highly encourage everybody to apply. Applications are open until this Friday at 4 p.m. and we currently still have spots open. So please, I invite everybody to apply for that. And then if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Don't want to take up too much of your time, but does anyone have any questions?
How are you letting supervisors know about this training?
Okay, so we announced it campus-wide to all faculty and staff last week, so that was the first way. Also, we are announcing it as stuff like inviting us here to speak. So those are the 2 main ways that we've announced it. It is also, we have an informational page on our website, which is where the application is housed as well. If you go to the Human Resources website, under Employee Development, Pilot Supervisor Training, you can find the schedule, learning objectives, application. Yes.
Why only make it for supervisors? Supervising full-time staff, because we just talked about you might want to move up to another position. And so being able to have that training, to have it under their belt, you're limiting it by making it just for.
So this is really the beginning of trainings that we're going to offer campus-wide. So this is really the first one, kind of a pilot. So this is the group that we identified would be beneficial right now, but we are working on developing programs for more people. So this will be the first one, and participants in this one will have a lot of input and responsibility into providing feedback and suggestions for developing future training programs campus-wide. So, thank you. Do we have any other questions? Awesome. Well, we are super excited to offer this. So like I said, please apply by September. This Friday is the last day to apply, and I am happy to answer the questions that anybody has. Thank you.
Thank you. So the top 3 or 5 things that we'll try to include in our report will be things that are really interesting to staff. So I think that training is something that I know, as I've read through notes from the staff since past and last year, are things we've tried to partner with different areas of WKU on. This is a big step. Number two, another big step, today is the deadline for the Staff Leadership Institute. I know a couple of the current members of the Staff Senate are byproducts of that program. If you haven't ever experienced that program or talked to someone that has, I'll just say from the people I've talked to, it's fantastic. I got to witness a little bit of it last year, and it's a top-notch opportunity. Deadline is today, though. So I think in the future, we'll talk about some different policies that are really important for staff members to know about. So the first one we'll start with is policy, basically 0. I think it's 0.0003, but it's the policy on policies. So it's important to know kind of how stuff's structured and how policies are made, and understand that it's a responsibility of I don't know if the president's cabinet is the right term, but the president's cabinet to review policies. That trust is given that policies will be maintained and updated when appropriate. And then shared governance has a role to point out when things need to change, maybe outside of the viewpoint or some members of that. So take a look at the WKU policies page. It's a great list. They're literally in writing. You can read through them all. It's not fun to read, but if you want to read and if you're curious, I know in our workforce committee meeting, one of the members was curious about how exit interviews work and how that data was used. And Andrea Sherrill from WKU Human Resources happens to be here, but reached out to her and just kind of asked for an explanation. She provided one like that. If you read that policy, and they stick to it. So that data does get used. And that's an opportunity that is given to people that exit. There are other great policies, so you'll hear about those in future reports. And then I have one more thing. This week, talking about growth and enrichment opportunities, Dr. Crow's group is putting on safe space training September 8th. Check your email from the 30th, 31st about that, noon to 1:30 on Zoom. No registration required. There's a link there, but a lot of good opportunities. Those conclude our top 3 for the day. I don't think we've had a meeting since our first BEC meeting of the year. Brian, myself, Jason Kansler are serving on the group that is the Budget Executive Committee and the Operating Allocation Committee combination group. During our first meeting, I was elected as co-chair of the Budget Executive Committee. So we'll have another meeting today, and we'll bring information back from that at our next meeting. There are a series of meetings that are scheduled for the year, and a lot of good info should be able to be reported back. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay. For the chair report, I have a few different things. Some of them are related to committees that we've been asked to participate in. So one of those is a search that will be launched this fall for Assistant Vice President for Student Engagement. We were requested to have staff representation serve on that search committee. And I reached out to Eric Thomas, who works in Housing and Residence Life, and thought that he would be a great fit since he works in that area. And he accepted. So we look forward to having Eric represent staff on that committee. And I encourage everyone to be involved in that process, as important as student life is, like Dr. Caboni was speaking to earlier. So I believe that process will begin this fall and should conclude in the spring. So just keep an eye out for that, and please do participate in that process and any open forums that there may be. I have had a communication about an ad hoc committee that is going to be established to review. Ironically, that was a segue you did not even know that you needed to give me, but to review a policy that is the inclement weather policy, particularly related to winter weather. So that is one that the provost reached out about and is putting together to review that policy to make sure that we're communicating as quickly and clearly as possible and keeping in mind faculty, staff, and student safety. So we will be meeting in the coming weeks to just review that policy and see if any work needs to be done on that. Also, Peggy, this will be confirmation. Peggy Crow had reached out to me again. She has previously served as a representative for us on the strategic plan implementation committee. And as Dr. Caboni mentioned at convocation, that work will be kind of revisited now. And so they are beginning their process again, and would like Peggy to continue that work since she already has a good knowledge of that and has served on that committee for us in the past. And then I believe that that is most of the comments that I have. Obviously, I did meet with President Caboni for the first time there on the first day of school on the 22nd. And we had a good meeting. He touched on several of the points that we talked about. We discussed, as he mentioned, issues around compensation, concerns about employee retention and how we would address those issues. And we talked about just morale on campus and kind of building that community back up. So several of those things he discussed with us this morning. So I look forward to continuing that work. So the next meeting with him will be on the last Monday of this month. So with that, I will move into, unless there are any questions for me, I will go ahead. Okay. Go ahead and move into old business. We did not have any on the agenda. Does anyone aware of old business that needs to come before the Senate? Seeing none, we'll move on. Is there any new business that should come before the Senate? All right. Next is our period of public comment. Is there anyone with us today that would like to make a public comment or raise a concern for the good of staff in the Senate? Okay. And then last are announcements and notable events. So I will mention to start us off, if anyone else has any announcements, please do raise a hand. But our next Staff Senate Executive Committee meeting will be September 13th at 10 a.m. via Zoom. And then our next Staff Senate meeting will be October 5th at 10 a.m. in this room here, TSU 2081. And our guest speakers, we will talk about employee benefits. Wade Pinkert is going to come, and I think Michaela might be joining Wade as well to talk about employee benefits and open enrollment. So it'll be perfect lead in with open enrollment there at the mid to end of October. So are there any other announcements or notable events for the Senate? Yes, Peggy.
I'd like to share, Christine, you just talked about professional development opportunities for staff. We will be hosting a second QPR suicide prevention training for staff. It was sent out many months ago to every department on campus, trying to get more people on campus to be trained as gatekeepers. This was a grant that we received through the CPE years funding, through mental health funding. And our goal is to train 70 of us, faculty, staff across campus as gatekeepers. The next one and the final one will be on Monday, in 2 weeks, on Monday, October 19th. Please let either Julia or I know if you are interested. We had 22 people attend the July training. It's an all-day training. It's going to be actually held in this room. Lunch will be provided, snacks will be provided. We would like more people on campus to be trained on suicide awareness and prevention. It is National Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month, so it's timely. And it's if you pay this out of pocket, it's a $500 to be QPR gatekeeper trained. And so if you personally are interested in being trained, again, let Julia or I know, and we'd be happy to include you in that training. You will go through the full day training, and then you too can go out and do this gatekeeper training. I can explain more to you at a different time if you're interested, but we could get 70 people across our campus, faculty, staff, trained on this. We could really make some inroads on campus with our own mental health, supporting our university community around this area. And so let's take advantage of this grant. And if you're interested, let Julie or I know, we'd be happy to include you. Thank you, Brian, for that time.
Just to be clear, you mean September 19th, right?
Monday, September 19th in this room, 8 to 4, right before SG.
All right, are there any other announcements? All right, well, really quick, before we conclude, I just want to thank everyone that was with us today, that was a guest, not a senator. We appreciate you. This room is always open to those who would like to attend our meetings in public, and we do have that public comment period at the end for a reason. So that is always available for everyone that's not with us, that may be watching the recording or following with us on YouTube. But also want to give a special thanks to the guests that were with us today. Thank you, Michaela, Andrea, thank you, Susan, for being with us today. We really appreciate you all taking the time out of your day to be here to address any questions that might come up. So we really do thank you for that. But with that, we will move to adjourn. I guess I just adjourn the meeting. Always like